Maybe you have a skill set that you're not able to use in your current job role. Maybe you want to make some extra money on the side. Or maybe you're just not sure of what you want to do in the long run and you think that freelancing will give you a portion-sized glimpse into life as a photographer, interior decorator, designer, web developer or ghostwriter. Whatever your reasons, I'm glad you're thinking about it and I'd love to help you. Hello and welcome to my channel, Right Rituals, where I talk about freelancing and discuss a few ways that we can get better at it together. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about 6 steps that give you a solid start in your freelancing career. And the first step that I'd like to discuss is to work on your craft. And I know that this may sound obvious, but it's really not. Very often we're so caught up in getting that edge that we think about marketing, networking, making the right connections before we've even started working on our craft that we want to get paid for eventually. And I see this in a lot of freelancers who are starting out. I see this in a lot of budding entrepreneurs, and they keep talking about making the right connections and going to meetups. But if you probe a little deeper, then you realize that very often they're not even sure about what product or service it is that they want to be responsible for. Now, I believe it's important to have a craft that is so shiny that it's calling clients from everywhere. And I think that's a freelancer's biggest asset and the most foolproof way to keep away competition. And otherwise you'd just be playing on cost rather than value, which means that you'd have to go in at a much lower rate just to get a few more customers. Whereas if you've worked on your craft to a point where it's really shiny and you're very proficient and you become known in your field, then what happens is that you can have fewer clients but make as much money. So I think it's very important to begin with working on your working on your craft, and just get started. So do I think that it's necessary to pay for a course or a certification? I don't think so, because when you're starting out, there's just enough information, free information out there on the internet and otherwise that will definitely give you a leg up when you're just starting off. And Coursera and Udemy do offer certifications for a very reasonable amount of money. So if you're willing to pay that money, then please go ahead, because that does add value to a few clients. Skillshare also offers some in-depth learning experiences. That said, I think the internet's become the most valuable tool for freelancers everywhere around the world, and you can just search for an expert in your chosen field and check out their techniques for free. For food, finance, fitness, I put in those efforts on purpose. There's a lot of experts out there, and I hate that internet experts has such a derisive tone to it. After all, they have been responsible for changing thousands of lives, and which is why we consider them experts. So if you could dial down the skepticism and just go ahead and check out their knowledge, I think it will give you a solid boost in your freelancing career. And if you're interested in freelancing while writing, freelancing as a content writer, then I also consult one-on-one. You can reach out to me at hello@rightrituals.com. That is hello@rightrituals.com. I will leave the email address in the description box below. And the first 5 people reaching out to me after this video will have the first session free of cost. That said, let's talk about the second step. The second step to becoming a successful freelancer would be to go into beta mode. And what I mean by this is to start user testing your content outside of your comfort zone of friends and family. And while these are the people that you would be most dependent on for support, they are certainly not the best judges of your skill set development, and definitely not the people that you're going to sell to. So how do you get started going into beta mode? You could do a few things. If you're lucky enough to be in college, there's a lot of events that require photography, writing, designing, and other creative skills. You could also start a blog or an Instagram channel at this time, and by the time that you're ready to go into freelance mode, you already have a padded portfolio that you can leverage. And if you think that clients are going to be unimpressed by something that you did in college, I'd say that you were mistaken, because a lot of customers and clients are willing to give driven and confident people one chance as long as they have the skill set to back them up. I did get my first freelance job by citing work that I'd done in college. And what if you're out of college? What do you do then? So you could definitely be reaching out to influencers on YouTube or Instagram who have a decent but not too large following in order to get a shout out or two. You could also be taking up a couple of unpaid projects, and I don't recommend doing this a lot. Especially in the beginning, I think it can be kind of demotivating, but you've got to see the value in if you can put their logo on your portfolio. So if it's a very valuable organization that you think will add a lot of credibility to your portfolio, then please go ahead and take up a couple of projects in order to get either references or their permission to use their logo on your portfolio. And you could still go in for an internship. I think it's very valuable to build a rapport over a certain period of time, and doing this, whether it's a paid internship or a free internship, will help you establish a sort of relationship with the organization, and then you can continue freelancing with them. The third step I'd like to talk about is to prove yourself. I know I'm not talking about paying clients yet, and I will very shortly, but I'd like to discuss this before I go there. Understand that any stakeholder, whether you're in a corporate setup or are self-employed, has more stake in the business than you do at any point in time. And so it is up to us to deliver way more than has been explicitly asked for. And this point is particularly personal to me. Let me tell you a quick story. Last year, I messed up pretty big with a client of mine. Now, they weren't my biggest clients at the time, but they'd been with me for 2 years. And I ghosted them on a project. And it's very embarrassing for me to be public about it, but the truth is that I was traveling and going through some stuff and was completely unable to deliver. But once the deadline had passed, I was so embarrassed that I could not communicate with them. 2 months later, their CEO, who had initially vouched for me, reached out, and I apologized profusely. I tried to make amends, and eventually I was given a second chance that enabled me to rebuild their trust in me. The point I'm trying to make here is that I have previously proven myself a rather invaluable resource for that organization, because my researching, consulting, and constant delivery on time had helped me become a more valuable resource. And while they could have gone out and hired a different freelancer, probably somebody who would be taking less of their resources, taking less of their money, they found that it was easier and more valuable to work with me, and there is no saying how valuable second chances like this turn out to be. So when you have a chance to prove yourself, and I know that a lot of freelancers have this issue of not being able to deliver on their timeline because they are doing this as a second business and already have day jobs, and while it is difficult, I think it's very important to stick to your commitments. And if you are in a position to be able to make those commitments yourself rather than being dictated to by the client, it's definitely more important to deliver on time then. Which brings me to my fourth step, which is getting paying clients. So far, I've discussed how best to build your freelancer profile and portfolio, and how to remain top of mind for your prospects. Now, why I call them prospects is that while you can start off with free projects, you don't have to do them forever. And as soon as you've made your mark and a good connection, it's a very good time to politely ask for paid projects. And discussing paid projects, my next video is going to be about payment structuring and what works, especially in India, and whether you should go in for a retainer model versus a pay per project system. So if that is of interest to you, please press the notification bell icon below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Getting back to paid projects, take on as many or as few as you can do justice to. As I mentioned in my last video, organizations in India are still not very comfortable with freelancers and very often treat them as full service agencies, and it is up to us to politely remind them of the fact that we're not. Should you be cold calling and cold emailing to get projects? Absolutely, this is what large organizations do. And if you have the time as a freelancer and you've gone over all of the steps that I've mentioned so far and not landed a paying client yet, then I think it's a very good way to start with something. I think LinkedIn is also a very good resource to begin with. Now, the fifth step that I'd like to talk about, and I might ruffle some feathers here. The fifth step to becoming an independent freelancer would be to deliver what the client wants and to do it in time. And as creatives, as web developers, as designers, writers, we know what is most visually pleasing, poetic, user-friendly. But there is, at the end of the day, a paying stakeholder who expects value for their payment, and that value is not necessarily in alignment with yours. And while freelancing can offer artistic freedom, I believe that it usually takes some amount of time, and by then you're an artist and not a freelancer with multiple paying clients and multiple points of views. So what I mean when I say that you deliver what the client wants is that you create a financial plan with 60% debt and 40% equity for somebody wanting to play it safe at 25. Or you build a website on WordPress and on Shopify for e-commerce if the client asks for it, because they don't know about either platform. But you build the best WordPress website that you've ever built. It's also necessary to do all of this within the time frame committed to, because this is a sure shot way of gaining a lot of respect and ensuring that you're top of mind when they think about a vendor or a freelancer or an artist to reach out to. It also creates instant trust and is sort of a foolproof way to protect against competition. And speaking of trust, my sixth step is to build a rapport with your community. This includes customers, paying and non-paying, current and former, prospects and project owners. It includes LinkedIn contacts, possible collaborators and other freelancers. You never know when one of them is unable to take on an opportunity and happy to pass it on to you. I think that the word networking has some seriously negative connotations to it, with the fake smiles and desperate overtures that I associate it with. And I do believe that it's completely possible to not waste valuable time in going to meetups in order to connect with people who are pretending to be useful while they're just figuring out a way on how to use you. But most importantly, once you have established some sort of rapport, it's very important to leverage it, whether it is in order to turn a project into a retainer or whether it is to ask for references. Once you've done this, I think you can go very far in deciding and setting the terms and conditions for your work agreements. And speaking of leveraging rapport for retainers, my next video is going to discuss payment structures and options and what has worked best for me. And I work in India as a freelance content writer. So do tune in next week. Thank you for staying this long to listen to me, and I hope to see you all soon.